the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear his side. Go ahead, man. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So James Long, met Brennan here. Like you said, I was still in high school, actually. I was going to North Forsyth. You had finished high school.
Yep.
But my wife and girlfriend at the time, you were friends with her. So that's how we got acquainted. And yeah, I was just a kid then. So I don't know what your memories of me were, impression honestly, of me was, but
I honestly remember back then you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember she would come back to the apartment and she would say he wants to be a Marine. He's going to be a Marine.
Yeah, yeah.
That, and she would brag about the diameter of your bicep. I think they were 22 inches or something, if memory serves correct.
Nice. They might have gone down since then. Somehow. I don't know. Well, yeah. So that's what I did, man. Yeah, I've always been driven and had that as a goal. But I wanted to enlist right out of high school initially, but my brother was enlisted at the time. And as you know, there was, the Iraq war going on and then Afghanistan and all that. So I wanted to get in the fight. Right. But my parents always wanted me to go to college, wanted all of us to go to college. My brother was like, nah, I'm going to the Marines. So I was going to do the same thing. And he's like, dude, pump the brakes. Like, go to college, come in as an officer. You'll have a better lifestyle, better pay. You'll be more independent. You'll be able to be a leader. And you'll make mom and dad happy. So
a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Except for poor James.
Yep.
He was ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it delayed some of that. And, still even looking back, I kind of have a little bit of regret there because I missed some of I didn't get to go to Iraq. I just did Afghanistan. But you can't control when you were born. And, it was the right move. So anyways, graduated high school, went to college, started at North Georgia, then UGA. And that's probably the last time I saw you. Once we moved to Athens, I think we were out. So,
yeah, and at that same time in my life, in 2003, I was in EMT school. So I was kind of starting my little path too, I guess.
Growing up.
What was your major?
International affairs. Like any college student, I bounced around majors the first couple of years, but then I just kind of came to the conclusion that this is a means to an end. I had to get a degree to go in as an officer in the Marine Corps. So, and I knew I was going to, once in the Marine Corps, learn about all kinds of other stuff, not necessarily practice whatever degree discipline that I got. So I was like, I'm just going to study what I want to study, which was at the time politics, essentially. So international affairs. Got that degree. In that time, Christina and I got married, had a kid. So I was going to school full time, working part time, trying to raise a kid at 20 years old. Was when we had our oldest. So it was crazy times. Looking back, I don't know how we did it, but we did it, and graduated, went in the Marine Corps, and then I went on an aviation contract. So did 6 months of the basic school, which all Marine officers do up in Quantico, Virginia, which is like a 6-month leadership education.
Is it similar to like the stuff you did at UGA? For some reason, when I think of you go into classes or school for the military, you've been to fire school too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I think of it more along those lines, practical with your hands. Is it that, or is it both?
It's a combination. Yeah. So there's I don't know what the percentage breakdown would be. It's a higher percentage of like practical exercises, hands-on. I mean, you're doing Marine Corps martial arts training, you're doing the weapons training, like learning how to manipulate the different weapons and then qualifying on them.
So instead throwing of taking grenades, like English, math, and Spanish, you're taking like weaponry, learning how to fight with your hands.
Yeah, basically.
So those are your classes when the bell rings.
Yep. Land navigations, how to use a compass and navigate, through the woods. And then just how to employ Marines tactically. I mean, this is a very basic level, like entry level, how to employ like an infantry squad, an infantry platoon, in combat. And you get to practice being the follower. Like you're a lieutenant, you're an officer, but like in this context, you're all together lieutenants. So somebody's got to play the role of like PFC, and somebody's got to play the role of, the company commander. And so you kind of move up and down the rank structure notionally,
Uh-huh.
practicing, leadership and then following at the same time, and kind of getting the experience of seeing what it's like to follow, what it's like to lead, et cetera.
Living both ways.
Yeah.
If you want to teach this guy, you need to do his job first, kind of thing.
Yeah. But back to your question, there also is like classroom stuff, and you take exams and things like that. So there is classwork as well, but it's 6 months long. Again, every Marine officer does it. It's the Marine Corps has this motto, I guess, that every Marine a rifleman. So Marines that go through boot camp on the enlisted side do the same thing. They practice like basic infantry tactics. They qualify on weapons and stuff. And so every Marine, no matter what you do, you may get out and become a cook or, an admin guy that deals with pay or whatever, but you have done some type of like basic tactical evolution and qualified on a rifle. That's not the case with every other branch.
Wow.
Yeah. If you're in the Air Force and you're going admin, like you do admin,
Yeah.
You've probably never qualified on a weapon. And you certainly don't do it. You may have qualified once, but in the Marine Corps, you keep that skill set up. It's a, recurring training requirement.
So you have like kind of quote certifications to maintain annually or biannually, similar to the fire service or
Correct.
EMS.
Yeah. And then, so that's the concept on like the enlisted side, every Marine or rifleman. And then on the officer side, it's every Marine officer is like a basic provisional infantry platoon commander. So again, I'm a pilot, right? The idea is that even if you're a pilot, or again, you're like the admin guy, if everything gets screwed up and we just need to pull somebody and throw them in charge of a platoon and go take that quote unquote hill, you could do that.
Anybody.
You're not gonna excel. Or you're not gonna be as good as the infantry guy that's like trained on it day in, day out. But like you have at least some foundational knowledge.
Everybody has the same minimum standard.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the Marine concept. I don't where we were going with that, but so finished the basic school and then down to Pensacola for flight school. So again, yeah, every Marine does that, and then after you finish the basic school, you go off to your MOS, your military occupational specialty school, to learn how to do what you're actually going to do in the Marine Corps. So for me, that was flight school. So that's when Christina and I moved down to Pensacola. We were there for 2 years going through flight school. We had our second kid down there. And then after that, moved to California for Camp Pendleton, where I flew Cobras for the next 11 years out there. Had our third kid out there. Now we're done. Yeah, so the third one was our boy. And he was 2 months old when I deployed to Afghanistan. So I left Christina with 3 kids. One was an infant. He was like our worst baby. And the fact that like he just cried all the time was like, he was very needy. And I was just like, see, I got to go.
So how long had you been there before you had to leave and the baby was born? What was the timeline?
We were there over a year. So, I mean, she was settled in.
So like, she had some roots. And
yeah,
some
we were in a house. We'd actually moved. When we first got there, we were in an apartment, rented that for a bit, and then bought a house. So got settled in there, had neighbors, going to church. So we had church family and stuff there too. So yeah, she had a group of support. But it's still different. Yeah. There's no we didn't have any family out there. They were, a 5-hour plane ride away. And it was still pretty new. And she was dealing with her third kid by herself. And, yeah, again, kind of about like looking back at college, it's like, how did we do that? Freaking 20 years old with a baby, working, going to school, not making any money.
And you kept checking the boxes though, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Set a goal up, knock it down, man. That's just what you do, right?
That's incredible. Did you always know you wanted to be a pilot?
No, that was just like happenstance. I always knew I wanted to be a Marine. And I think like most Marines, I wanted to hold a rifle and like kick down doors and throw grenades and do all that kind of, like grunt stuff. Yeah. And in fact, my brother is a grunt. He is a grunt still. But my recruiter essentially at the time was like, hey man, I think you can pass this test that like could get you an air contract. And he's like, frankly, they have quotas, right? Like they have to have so many ground contracts, air contracts male recruits, female recruits, like down by race and gender and all the things, you know.
So he needed an air contract
and he's like,
felt
yeah,
good about you.
He's like, dude, yeah, like I need this for my quotas. And I'm like, I think you can pass the test. Do you mind doing it? And he's like, you can, if you get in on an air contract, you can always drop to a ground. It's easy.
At least he was honest.
Yeah. I'm like, sure, man, give me the test. And I passed it. So I was on an air contract, fully intending to drop it at some point and go ground and be a grunt. But then, yeah, we got married. We had a kid. So the idea of being a pilot and having that skill set to fall back on when I eventually got off of active duty as a potential career down the line in the civilian sector became more appealing. So I was like, no, I'll keep the air contract. So that's what I did. So yeah, I went to flight school. It was pretty intimidating because a lot of the guys were, like you said, like they wanted to do that since they were kids, man.
Knew
like,
they wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah. Like for forever, knew they wanted to be a pilot. Were obsessed with aviation, could tell you all about different kinds of aircraft. Like some of them had their private pilot's license already, had hundreds of hours in aircraft. And here I am, zero experience. Like I couldn't tell you the difference between a, Boeing 777 and a F-16 at the time, and 0 hours, and spent my whole academic career avoiding math and science and all that stuff. And now here I'm learning about like lift equations and drag and coefficients and words that did not mean anything to me until then. So yeah, a bit intimidating, not to mention the fact that I had 2 kids, which was pretty, I was an outlier there. Most people were, 22 years old,
right?
Single or maybe dating, but I'm married with 2 kids. But I did it. Actually did pretty well in flight school, which that's what I tell people now that ask me if, they're interested in aviation. I'm like, dude, anybody can fly. Anybody can learn to fly. It's just basic monkey skills and rote memorization and then, go out and do it and you'll figure it out. The thing with the military though, is that like, there's a crunch timeline, not everybody learns at the same pace. And that was like the challenge with military aviation training is, you need to know this by this date and you need to perfect this skill by this date. And if you don't do that, like you're out,
So you're at the house with a house full of kids studying like crazy.
Yeah. Door shut. Christina's keeping them quiet or, taking them out. And, I'm just, cramming, studying, chair flying, they say, like sitting in a chair like this, 0G, trying to imagine yourself going through the flight. Cause every flight is a test essentially. Like there's a list of skills and like learning objectives that, you're expected to know and demonstrate. So what you're going to do going into it. So yeah, you just sit there and kind of imagine yourself doing this loop or barrel roll or this level speed change or whatever the maneuver is and try to think all the numbers you got to hit, where the controls got to be to do that. And,
I bet you're dreaming about it all the time, even when you're sleeping back then.
Yeah, it was stressful, man.
How did you end up in the aircraft what was it you said you flew?
I'm a Cobra pilot in the Marine Corps. So, you get basically a wish list. You get a wish list. It's based on that. It's based on your score. So like I said, every flight's a test and you get graded and you come out of flight school with a score. I forget the term. It's an NSS, something standard score. So it's based on that. And then it's based on obviously the needs of the Marine Corps. Like, do we need more Cobra pilots at this point with all these graduating aviators coming in, or do we need more F-18 pilots or whatever it is? Like, you're going to fill the needs of the Marine Corps first, and then after that, they'll look at your score and what you want and kind of plug and play. So I wanted Cobras. Luckily, I had the grades for really whatever I wanted. And then I picked Cobras as my number 1 and got it. So I was lucky. Yeah.
And you started flying those while in Pensacola, or that wasn't until you got out of California?
Yeah, I was out in California. So Pensacola is just like flight school. It's all trainers, like orange and yellow aircraft, pretty small, basic aircraft. And then from there, you go to the replacement air group, the RAG, they call it. And depending on what platform you're going to fly is all over the country. But for Cobras and Hueys in the Marine Corps, it's at Camp Pendleton, California. So we moved out there, and then, so everybody that flies those would go out there. And then, we always have bases there. We have bases that fly Cobras and Hueys in North Carolina and Hawaii, Okinawa. But for me, I was stationed in Pendleton. So I did the school there, which is about 6 months learning how to fly a Cobra. And then I went to my line squadron, which is the unit I deployed with out of Camp Pendleton.
I got to ask, with all the UFO stuff, did you ever see anything?
No. Well, you see stuff, but I never saw like the Tic Tac.
About the Tic Tac.
Yeah, or anything crazy like that. That's just the jet guys, I guess, get the privilege of that. I fly too low, man. Too low, too slow. UFOs don't want to mess with helicopters.
So you know about the Tic Tac.
Yeah, but you see, I mean, on goggles, especially at night, it's amazing what you can see and how far you can see. And actually, the Starlink, is that what it's called? Right? The satellite thing?
Yeah.
First time seeing that was kind of trippy because it's like literally a string of lights that before that, like you would never see. That doesn't occur in nature. And you would never see stars like that on the goggles. And then you see it and you're like, what the? But then I learned that it was just Starlink. And so I think all that to say, a lot of this UFO stuff is exactly that. It's like you see something that you don't expect. I think there's normally an logical explanation to it. But it's fun to think about UFOs, I guess. Yeah. I know
People talk about it there while you're out there. I guess that was a little bit after the Tic Tac thing. I think that was 2004.
Yeah. That event occurred like before I got there, but they didn't start talking about it till I think I was still in California at the time. But yeah. But yeah, I read a story recently. I don't know, within the last year about a UFO sighting and I think the story was in like Joshua Tree, which is right next to 29 Palms, which is like the largest Marine Corps training base in the country or the world for that matter. Lots of ordnance, lots of flying machines, lots of stuff that occurs over those skies and on that ground. And the story was like totally like, oh yeah, this UFO, like crazy thing. And it's these like civilian people in Joshua Tree, probably high on mushrooms or something, reporting that they saw this crazy alien thing up in the sky. And turns out it was a guy that I know who was up in an aircraft, just like throwing, they had like extra flares for this exercise. And so they were just like chucking, and they were like literally trying to make designs in the sky with these flares.
So they're playing.
Yeah. And so these guys are just like needlessly dumping flares out of the back of an aircraft, just having fun. And you know, it gets perceived by somebody else as an alien. Yeah. So I think that's usually what happens with the UFO thing.
So you get deployed.
Yeah.
When was that? What year?
2012. So yeah, September, October 2012 until May 2013. That was Afghanistan.
Very cool. Is that where you had a worse day?
I wouldn't say I had a worse day there. I mean, I had some scares for sure. I thought I was going to run out of fuel one time because we stayed on station for this mission too long. We thought we were going to get to shoot. And I was a junior guy at the time, so I never signed for an aircraft. I wasn't the aircraft commander. Not to put the blame on this guy, but he was in charge of the aircraft and making the decision to come back. And we pushed it. Thought I was going to run out of fuel, but luckily we didn't. We landed with less fuel than I've ever seen in a Cobra. And that is...
I imagine that's a little different than
well below what you're supposed to land with.
Driving a little too long with your gas light on.
Yeah. It just coasts and you just pull over, you know, gas runs out of your aircraft. You become a freaking lawn dart. So, and not a lawn dart in North Georgia, but like in Afghanistan, right? Yeah. Like in the middle of the desert, bad guys want to kill you. They're going to see you go down. But we made it. Turns out you can land with a lot less fuel than our manuals say you can land with. But no, had some good days, man. I always joke, that movie Fury, right? Is it Fury with Brad Pitt, the tank movie? And that's one of the lines in there. He always says, best job I ever had. And he's like, you know, in the shit, getting shot at in the tank. And they always joke with each other, best job I ever had, right? That's how I feel about flying an attack helicopter in Afghanistan in support of, you know, Marines and everybody else. I mean, I supported special forces, supported local Afghans, supported DEA, oddly enough. That was kind of weird to find out that we had drug enforcement agency in Afghanistan doing operations.
Opium.
Yeah. So all got to foreign nationals, so British, Australians. So it was just cool, man. It was exactly what I signed up to do, right? Like, I got to go fly a helicopter, shoot at things, support good guys against bad guys in some foreign land. So yeah, best job I ever had.
What do you say your worst day is? What's an example of a worst day? Or maybe that's in your new job.
Yeah, I would use that to transition to the next job. So I did the Afghanistan thing. Transitioned to another aircraft, another version of the Cobra. Did another deployment. Whatever. La. Fast forward. 11 years after going active duty, got off active duty, transitioned to reserves, and then I became a fireman, actually, in Southern California. So went through EMT school at night, and then got hired with the Orange County Fire Authority in Orange County, California, which is basically between San Diego and Los Angeles. Huge department, prestigious department, and a real tough fire academy, man. Yeah. So I was like 30, 33, I think. Going through, and going from like major in the Marine Corps, officer, all world Cobra pilot to boot ass fire recruit in Orange County. So talk about like a big helping of humble pie every morning when I showed up to the academy. It was that, but it was good. It was a really good experience and tough. So then I became a fireman, and all kinds of bad days there, dude. Like, I tell people, and I did that for 2.5 years, and then we moved back here, and then that kind of triggered the next career transition, which we can talk about in a second. But it was different. Like in the Marine Corps, you're out, trying to defend good and freedom and all the all those values, right? Knowing that there's evil out there, and you're like going out to defeat evil, so to speak, but you don't get to see it, at least as a pilot, face to face. And when I became a fireman, it was like I knew there was parts of society in America that were bad, and that struggled, and that abused substances and government handouts and everything else. But it was just kind of like peripheral. Like I didn't know it up close. And then when I became a fireman, it was like every day, man. Every day you're seeing behind that curtain of just the brokenness and the sin and the evil and the people just wasting away, man. And it so it was a lot of bad days, I guess. But the baddest day, or the call that will always stay in my mind was it was a motorcycle wreck with a guy who was doing like 120, and there was just nothing that they could do for that little girl, man. And that was, it's weird to say it's like my worst day in the job. It's certainly the saddest I've ever felt doing that job, knowing that like that little girl didn't make it and I couldn't do anything about it. And the crew, my med crew, couldn't do anything about it. But it's weird saying that because it was that family's worst day. And it changed their life forever. And I just can't imagine, as a dad right now. Yeah. I think it'd be different if you didn't have kids, but having a kid and having a little girl, and then seeing a girl on a ER table not making it's rough. Yeah, yeah. That's one that sticks with you too. Yeah, yeah. And it will for years and years. It'll just randomly pop in your head. Yeah, and it makes you you want to get like overprotective of your kids. You start thinking about things different and start treating your kids different. I always tease out my kids. I'm like, you're just unfortunate. You were born to a paramedic. I can't help but to see a Final Destination scene unfold in every room I go into. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The nurse that was with me, he's a guy, he's got a little girl. He said that girl looked just like his daughter. So, this call was at like somewhere between 10 and midnight, I think. So his family was home asleep, but man, he called and woke him up and was like, I just want to talk to you. I want to hear your voice, So it messes with you. Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And that's like when I told Haley I wanted to do this, and she was like, well, what's your worst day? And I was like, that's the
cool and horrible part about that question is anybody that's done this work for long enough, they're going to have their pick. They're going to have several worse days, you know. And then the other thing was I would get off shift and I would have had a bad night, like running bag calls and do like everybody and stop by the grocery store on the way home. And I'm like filling the tomatoes and speaking to the guy next to me, and he's got no idea what I was just doing 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Part of this is I hope normal, like civilian people listen to it. I'd like to get the appreciation back for these jobs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've noticed the numbers are like dwindling, man. They're just, kids aren't coming out of the womb wanting to hold a gun, chase bad guys, or run into burning buildings. So,
that's across the board, right? Like, I know all the fire departments up here, so we serve Pickens County, Gilmer County, a little bit of Fannin, Lumpkin, Dawson. Anyways, all those counties are hurting for guys. Like they can't put enough butts in the seat to run the calls that they need to run, you know? And then it's the same thing in the military. All the branches, the Marine Corps actually hit its recruiting goal somehow last year, but all the other branches fell short by like 20, like not good numbers, you know?
And I just shot a promo video day before yesterday, and it sounds cheesy to say out loud, but it's legit. Like you've heard before that the citizens of this country are the fabric of the country. I think it's true, but these people are the threads that hold it together.
Yeah.
What happens when you take thread away from fabric? It starts coming apart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Same thing with the police. I mean, good luck finding somebody motivated to do that job these days because the way that, I don't know, society and culture has treated that profession. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And everybody wants to go to money. You know, it's like, well, they just don't get paid enough. You don't make enough, you know, and I don't think that's it. Certainly that's a factor. But I think it's a deeper, like cultural thing. The professions have grossly been underpaid for years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think money's got something to do with it for sure. But I think the societal norms and how these people are looked at has changed for the negative, sadly, I guess you could say.
Yeah. That like sense of service, sense of sacrifice, and then just belonging and family within those organizations, I think that's occurred throughout society, right? Like we're just less connected, man. We don't hang out like we used to. We don't break bread as much as we used to. It's all through the phone. It's all through social media, and it's a poor substitute. But anyways, that's like, I think infused into those professions, which have forever been like the brotherhood, you know, the family culture. And it's kind of eroded that sense from those professions. And that's part of the draw, right? And if you take that away, then, and combine it with the pay, like, what are you doing? So I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is, but there needs to be one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Hopefully somehow, eventually I can help with this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think if Joe Smith come and hears you talk about, because I don't know, you hear normal people talk about like the sacrifices that police and fire and military and all that make, but I don't know. It's what you just said to me that I kind of view as the biggest sacrifice is that headspace that now that little girl's death occupies in your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you do it over time and more headspace. To me, that's kind of the sacrifice, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I am much more jaded. And this isn't from the Marine Corps. I was fine coming out of the Marine Corps. No PTSD, you know, no like weird stuff. Granted, I'm a pilot, so like a lot of the death and destruction I've seen is like essentially through a video screen.
Right.
It's not, you know, like what you're seeing right now in Israel, you know, like kicking in doors and shooting people in the face. I mean, anyways, that can impact you differently. I understand that. But I came out of my active duty Marine Corps career fine mentally. But 2.5 years as a fireman, and not like mentally unstable, but like my demeanor has changed. Like I'm more jaded. I have less faith in humanity. You know, it impacted me in a big way. And I'm like, identify that, right? That's the first step, is knowing that you have a problem. So I'm trying to change that and restore my hope in mankind. But
it's hard.
Yeah,
Man.
when you see that much crap, dude, and to do a 20, 30-year career of that, talking about the amount of headspace you give up for that is enormous,
And like, not that it would even be a thought for that little girl's parents, but I wonder if they even think that, I wonder if the flight crew ever thinks about our little girl. You know what I mean? They probably have, not that they would anyway, but you know what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
That years from now, you're going to be thinking about their little girl's death,
Yeah. Yeah. And it has an impact on you. Like I said, like the way you look at your kids and treat your kids after going through something like that is different. Yeah. I lost a lot of friends in the Marine Corps too. None of them in combat. It was all like training flights. But aviation and the Marine Corps in general is a risky business, but aviation in particular, every time you go fly, you're defying the law of gravity. Like the odds are, well, not the odds are against you, but like you have forces of nature working against you at all times. And I think somewhere around 10 guys that I knew personally that I've like shared a beer with, are no longer here, because he crashed. And so that weighs on me. Right. And you don't even know how deep it resonates because you just try to compartmentalize, right? And you just put it away. Like, I can't keep flying and go up thinking like, what if I die, right? Like you just kind of put it in the back. And so you wonder one day how like that's going to manifest.
Right. And it's kind of like while you're working a bad call, like when I was working on a little kid or something that wasn't doing well, I didn't really think about the size or age of what I was working on. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. I had to an extent for dosages and equipment and stuff like that. But
you kind of try to dehumanize it or just like
emotionally thinking about it. But when it would get me is when I would sit down to do my paperwork. And I would get the face sheet that the hospital gives you, and then you see their name and birthday, their social security number, a little spot on the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's when it'd get me.
Yeah.
I had to go take a couple minutes in the back of the truck for my mental health.
Yeah. That's weighty stuff.
It is. And I'm telling you, the people getting produce next to you in the grocery store have no idea.
No.
They just know the cliche version that they should appreciate you. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think that people understand the headspace.
Yeah.
That's what I tried to describe it to Haley, my wife. I was like, it's like a Rolodex of these terrible images and stuff like that. And it's not like I'm PTSD or anything like that, but you just can't help it. Nothing will even happen, but just randomly the Rolodex will flip open and you'll have a thought or a memory of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A smell comes across and you're like, it takes you to some scene, where you saw something, smelled something. Yeah.
So those are some of your worst days. What about some best days? You got some best days? At those 3 jobs?
Yeah. So, well, like I said, attack helicopter pilot in Afghanistan, best job I ever had. Particularly, I would give 2 examples from that. One was actually in support of these British guys. They had done a little raid on a small little village somewhere in Helmand. But anyways, they got into it. They found this like weapons cache. We helped blow that up for them. And then they just got into like a house to house firefight, and they were trying to egress out of there, and they were basically having to shoot their way out. And then, and so we're shooting in support of them, trying to basically cover their movement from house to house. And then their last movement was across this gigantic open farm field to get to their like extract LZ.
Last place they wanted to be.
Yeah. So they're like, wait, now, we've been fighting our way through this village. Now we got to run across open ground. Like we're going to get tore up. So, but that's where we came in. And I shot more that day than I'd shot, in a number of days combined in Afghanistan. We would literally like shoot all of our ordnance off, fly back to the FARP, which is where you go like get more ammo and fuel, reload, refuel, come back, shoot out, go back, rearm, refuel, come back, shoot out.
So you're in heaven right here, right?
Yeah, like it was, as far as the job description goes, it was fun. But I guess why I say it was my best day is because I firmly believe that those guys wouldn't have made it safely to their extract LZ if we weren't there.
Right.
So it was very rewarding. Again, like when you think about signing up for the Marine Corps and doing something, like that's what you think about. And I actually got to do it. A lot of guys, unfortunately, don't get that, right? You sign up and then timing doesn't work out. You don't get to see combat, or you go to combat and you don't get to be involved in an exercise like that. But I got that unique opportunity. The second one was in the Marine Corps, we talk about combined arms. So like, and putting the enemy in a combined arms dilemma. So like no matter what, you're going to be forced into meeting your maker, whether it's like by the bullet of a gun, by artillery shells, by a missile off an aircraft, whatever it is. We're going to combine all these arms at a decisive point where like there's no good answer for you, you know?
Kitchen sink approach.
Yeah, yeah. And there was this VSP, I think it was Village Security Point, that a MARSOC unit had set up in a little village. And the idea behind these were that they would go out and like essentially recruit people to the Afghan like national army, and, you know, provide security for the village against the Taliban and other terrorists coming through the area. Well, this was such a hotbed that they basically had to shut this VSP down, and like the MARSOC Marines needed to get extracted out of there. Well, it wasn't just like, hey, let's leave right now. It was, we planned this big exercise to extract them out of there. And there was tanks up on the ridge line, like shooting down into
This is where I see, like, before this happens, like people are on corkboard with a map and you're drawing circles and you're going to be here. They're going to be over here.
It was basically, so no corkboard, but more PowerPoint, you know.
Oh, God.
But yeah, you know, all the players get together, so to speak, and you deconflict fires and figure out how you're going to come in and out of the objective area. But, you know, we trained to this big combined arms approach, and you just never really see it in its full potential in actual combat often. But this instance, I got to see it. I mean, there's us, Cobras and Hueys, like over their shoulder. There's tanks up on the ridgeline. There's artillery coming in from miles away, shooting in. And then there's, call it the stack, like the air stack, with all the aircraft that are supporting this exercise.
So
that
you're like walking with your chest out.
Yeah. I mean, these guys, there was no chance these guys weren't getting out of there safely with the amount of shit that they had in support of them. But it was awesome to see, like, a tank shooting, then it stops shooting, and then we shoot, and then we pull off, and then an F-18 drops a bomb, and then the F-18 pulls off, and Artie starts raining in, and it was just, it was cool to see all the conceptual things. So sorry, that we trained to come into practice, and like how effective it is, and how you don't want to be at the other end of that, you know. So that was my two best days, I guess.
Damn, taxes are worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. And then, best day with the fireman stuff. I don't, I hate to beat up on my time as a fireman. There's just a lot of crap, man. You see a lot of crap. And I can't think of a specific, like, this person that we saved. I mean, you help a lot of people for sure. And then you help a lot of people that you wonder if you should have helped. But that job was awesome for me just because it was in line with what I know. Like, I got to serve the community, and the culture of the fire department, at least the fire department I worked at, I think is as close to a culture that matches what I experienced in the Marine Corps. That like brotherhood, family, and then just like sitting around shooting the shit with the guys. I mean, I don't know, was pickleball a thing yet when you were at the fire department?
No,
okay, well, it took off at Orange County. Every station had a pickleball court. Man, we would spend freaking hours out there just crushing each other, talking shit, playing pickleball against each other, and then catch a call, you know, go put out a car fire, come back, finish the game.
Yep.
So just that that culture was
the station
awesome.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. And I miss that. And then current job, kind of same thing. I mean, not to sound like, I don't know, cliche or like braggadocious, but I mean, every time I fly somebody, I feel like I'm making a difference, like it's rewarding in that.
It doesn't matter how good the medic or the nurse are. If you're no good, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I got to get them there.
Their job if you can't get them there.
Yeah.
What's it like when you have a pickup, you're leaving a scene and you hear the medic and nurse working like hell? Can you hear all that happening? They're mic'd up still, I guess, while they're...
Yeah, they're on helmets, and I can talk to them. They can talk to me, and then you'll have to come by the base and see the aircraft at some point. And you'll see like the patient is right next to me. So you can see everything. I mean, if there's like blood spurting, it's going to hit me. They're right there. They're where the other pilot would normally be, but the aircraft's been reconfigured and modified to where that's where the patient goes. So yeah, I remember this was like an inter-facility transfer. So we do inter-facilities, from hospital to hospital. When you go from one hospital that can't take care of this patient, when it's like stroke, heart attack, whatever, to an appropriate facility. And we do scene calls which is what everybody I think thinks of, like landing on the road from a highway crash, whatever. So, and generally speaking, scene calls they're always going to be bad, right? Like if you're calling us to the scene, this person's really messed up. Yeah. Sometimes you can get some inter-facility hospitals that are like, they just need to empty a bed, Yeah. And this one seemed like that. It came in as like abdominal pain, which is like stereotypical like BS call. I'm like, what do they call now? Like I'm for abdominal pain. And so that's kind of the mindset that we went into this call with. I go land, they get the patient, they load the patient. As they're loading the patient, I look in this dude's eyes and I'm like, those look like eyes that aren't going to be here much longer. Like I didn't see much life there. Yeah. And I literally take off, and within a minute of like being in cruise flight, this dude arrests. And so they're the nurse, she sits behind me, or he sit behind me. So when they come up to mess with the patient, they're like bumping me out of the way. And I'm like trying to fly the helicopter sideways. So, with it being like a 15-minute transit, not one person can do CPR for 15 minutes. So they're trading back and forth. Right. And the nurse is like bumping me out of the way every couple minutes to do CPR and then sit back and rest. The medic jump up. So yeah, they're right there. You see it.
Are they like little kids? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah. They're like, can you go any faster? I'm like, no, I'm giving it all I got. Yeah, you can't speed up time. So yeah, that was an interesting call. But yeah. Lots of crazy, gnarly traumas and scene stuff that you see there. We just flew a patient recently. This was a scene call out of Dawson. It was right on the Dawson-Pickens line, but it was poor lady driving down like a 2-lane back road, and she was headed to church, I think, to like teach kids, and a freaking F-350 just head on, boom, plowed into her, and she had her femur was broken in 2 spots, compound, gnarly break. We flew her down to Kennestone. And she'll be all right. But yeah, like little things like that, like, gosh, what's wrong with the world? This lady was going to like teach kids at church, Yeah. Now she's getting freaking flown to the hospital with a really jacked up leg that probably never going to walk the same again, All
right.
So it's crazy.
Yeah. And it always seems to work that way. The dude that hit her probably
drunk. Yeah, something.
And fine afterwards.
Oh, yeah, he walked away. Yeah.
Always that way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I used to, when I was a paramedic here with the fire department, it was before we were a trauma center at the hospital. So I had to fly out all my traumas when I first started. I've seen some pilots do some incredible stuff.
Yeah, as Mullinax was telling me, because he used to work part-time with us and full-time with Hall, right? Uh-huh. And I didn't think, because since I've been here, Northeast Georgia here in Gainesville has been a trauma center. Right. Now it's a level 1, right? But I guess back in the day it wasn't, and it wasn't even a stroke, cardiac or something. So yeah, he said, y'all used to fly a lot of stuff out of here, but now Hall County never calls it now because
they got everything here.
Yeah.
And that's something, if I didn't live in this world, I wouldn't know how much it truly matters where in the fuck you live.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? like in my older years, I've gotten to appreciate privacy and being alone. But then you think about those places also don't have trauma centers, cardiac centers, stroke centers. So where you live matters.
For sure. Yeah. People ask me like, so what do you like? You just sit around and like wait for a call and like, where do you go? And especially with like the interfacility things, are like, why are you going from one hospital to another? And I have to explain to people, you know, outside of this world, they don't understand that not all hospitals are created equal.
Right. If you have a heart attack in Hiawassee, they might not be able to do the treatment you need there. So they got to get you somewhere that they can do it. Yeah. And time is of the essence.
It's funny you mentioned Hiawassee. That was like, I think my last call, 2 a.m. Picking up a guy at a Hiawassee at Chittoog Regional, bringing him down to Northeast Georgia because he was having a heart issue. Yeah. So it's the thing.
Those things, like you said, they can go south too. And especially if it's at a very small rural hospital where, you know, standards may not be upheld like they are at others, then it's a lot of work for your nurse and medic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, funky medications being given, dosages being incorrect, stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes they're like, dude, I think they were like trying to kill this patient. Like, thank God we came. The hospital was going to kill him. You know? And that's not to like disparage those folks. It's just, you know, they're not used to seeing, you know, high level traumas or stuff that requires like extreme intervention, so to speak. You know? That's why they're calling us to get them out of there. So mistakes can be made, or they're just not, you know, ready to handle
the big mistakes, them thinking that they can handle it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So at least they know they needed some help.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your favorite job, you think? What'd you like the best out of the three? Something tells me the fire service.
I really like the fire service, man.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm saying,
but yeah, you understand. Like, it's just,
and it's,
I think if I was,
you're living that life and you're making that pay and you're away from your family. Yeah. Like it's
and you're just seeing the dregs of society day in and day out. It just wears on you, man. Yeah. But it's a good job. Yeah. And I liked it. And I'm glad I did it. And then I would say the Marine Corps. I mean, what self-respecting, you know, male child doesn't want to like fly a freaking helicopter and shoot things at some point in their life, you know? And I got to do that. I got to like the little toys you play with a kid. Like I got to be in that toy and go do like the pretend things, you know? So that was sweet. Are
you thinking that while you're flying in Afghanistan and you're shooting, you're like, man, I can't believe I'm here right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Not so much at the time in Afghanistan because there's so much other things to be thinking about. Like make sure you're shooting the right target, like where are the friendlies, where the bag is, you know? But yeah, looking back for sure, you're like, dude, I can't believe I got to do that. That was awesome. And even still, like I said, best job I ever had. And I could do it again. I was just texting some guys actually last night with this whole stuff going in Israel and Hamas stepping over the border and, you know, raping and killing women and children. And it's just crazy, you know? And I wasn't, what I said to those guys, like, I wasn't the first to raise my hand and like go help out the Ukraine, you know, when they got invaded by Russia. And I probably won't be the first to raise my hand if China decides to do something with Taiwan. But based on the stories I'm hearing out of Israel and coming from Hamas, I'd be down to take a Cobra over there and put some bad people in the ground. Yeah. You know,
I've never thought about that. Like when you're out and you come back and stuff like that's popping off. I guess it does.
Yeah. And I'm still in the reserves. So
are you?
Yeah. I go once a month, every other month-ish down to New Orleans where my unit is and fly with them. So I'm still doing the Marine thing. It's just part-time.
Oh, very cool.
So it's a possibility. I mean, we're the like break glass in case of war unit as the reserves, you know? So we're kind of we'd be the last people that would go if something popped off, but you never know.
Christina get antsy when stuff like this happens.
She does. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But this is at least me sitting in Northeast Georgia, safe, fine, you know,
right.
Thinking about the allures of, you know, combat and helping the good guy win in Israel, you know, I'd be down to do it. Like I'd volunteer. I'd go. I couldn't say that with some of these other conflicts that are going on around the world, but this one in particular, I don't know. I'd do it. So
I'm sure they would take you.
Yeah, probably. They actually fly Cobras. Israel does. They have some Cobras. Yeah.
I'll throw you in one, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's a fight that would do, like, that's what our aircraft are designed for, like kind of close in urban fighting with kind of low end weaponry. Because we're helicopters, we get shot down pretty easily by like sophisticated surface-to-air missiles, which Russia has, which China has, which is why I wouldn't be the first to raise my hand and go over there. Because like that's not our fight. That's not what Cobras do. But fighting terrorists in the desert, we're pretty good at. So that's what I guess the other reason this fight appeals to me. But and just like I said, the stories, man. Did you hear that? There's like something like 40 babies beheaded.
No, I haven't heard any of that.
It's insane. Like what kind of soulless? I mean, that's just another kind of evil.
I'm completely out of the loop. When we closed the business in June, I literally haven't watched any TV.
It's good. It's probably better. I should probably stop.
No.
Yeah.
Like I see blurbs of it come up, but I hadn't even known. I knew some trouble in Israel, but I didn't know exactly what was popping off.
Yeah. I mean, like in a word, I guess it's like their 9/11 essentially. Yeah. These guys jumped the border. And yeah, have killed hundreds, maybe in the thousands now. And then they kidnapped a bunch of people and took them back into the Gaza Strip, and Lord knows what they're doing there, you know? So pretty crazy, but it's not going to end anytime soon. It's like full on war now, you know?
And they've been at it for centuries.
Yeah.
Over there.
And that's the crazy thing. It's like, this isn't new there, but this is like this type of, this scale of violence and like this scale of conflict in that area, as used to it is with conflict, hasn't been seen since like the 70s. I mean, this is pretty big deal.
It's a step up in aggression, I guess.
Yeah. This isn't like the one night of rockets, you know. This is probably going to be a conflict that goes on for months or years there until, I don't know. Who knows if it'll ever hasn't ended yet.
I don't know how much our current administration, how eager they're going to be to help either.
Well, they have been so far. They've sent a carrier strike group over there, which doesn't mean much. Yeah, I don't think we're going to put troops on the ground. I can't imagine us doing that. I don't think the American people have the appetite for that yet. Anyways, but for sure there will be U.S. owned aircraft dropping ordnance over there, I think, based on what I've seen on the news.
Right.
So, no, yeah. So far, it sounds like the administration is coming heavily down on the side of Israel, as they should. I mean, they are our ally. Not Hamas which is the organization that carried out these attacks on Israel. Right. I mean, is a known terrorist group. You know, it's the Al Qaeda of that area. You know, and they're supported by Iran, which is one of our like top 4 adversaries in the world. So,
and we gave a bunch of money too for some reason.
Yeah, I heard that recently. I don't know. I got to dig into that. What's going on there? Yeah. Are we giving billions to Iran?
So bizarre. It almost like they're paying for it.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. Back to like UFOs and conspiracies.
Exactly.
Come full circle here.
Well, man, what's next for you? You just gonna keep doing your thing with the reserves and air life, or?
Yeah, I got a pretty good setup now doing that. So that's kind of the foreseeable future. I am looking to like move into management at some point within my company. It's a private company, right? We do EMS, but we're not like Hall County, you know, we're a private organization and we service literally the entire country. We're the largest air medical transport company in the country.
And I've always heard they're great about promoting from within, and they don't really even, like the mechanics can move up to big high level positions.
Yeah. It doesn't matter your role within the company. There's a lot of room for growth, regardless of your pilot, a clinician, or mechanic. So that's the goal long term. I mean, I know that I need to off ramp at some point. Like I don't want to be getting woken up at 2 a.m. for the rest of my life, or at least the rest of my working life.
Right.
Especially as I move into like my 40s and 50s, and God help me if I'm still working in my 60s. I don't want to be doing that. I want a desk job that's 9 to 5, and I got my weekends, and can go to my kids' events and not come home and sleep all day to catch up.
Yep.
So that's kind of, I guess, the midterm goal is at some point slide off the flight line and into management leadership role within the company, and then see if I can climb that ladder as high as I can, and hopefully retire sometime in my 50s. That's the goal, I guess. And then, we dabble in some entrepreneurial stuff, talked about doing something like this, podcast. She's getting her real estate license, and we've messed around in real estate in the past. And we have some stuff going on right now in real estate, and we're just trying to grow that and have it as a bit of a side hustle that hopefully eventually turns into a full-time thing. Just always trying to set new goals, achieve them, grow wealth, build wealth, not just for us, but like for our kids, that generational wealth that we can pass down, and not just be in it for us, but in it for, our family, and for the long haul for our kids and our grandkids, et cetera, setting them up for success,
Yeah, you've set quite the standard for them.
I hope so. We'll see.
What a badass story, man.
Kids, that's the thing I remind my oldest, especially my 17-year-old. I'm like, no kid gets to choose their childhood. You don't get to choose the family you're born into. And that can mean you come from a great family and like you're blessed beyond what you deserve, right? Or the other end of the spectrum. And you're born into a just terrible family. It's abusive, all the things, But at some point, every adult gets to choose like where they're going, And so I just remind her of that. I like to think that I've given her a good example and set a good standard for not just her, but all the kids.
Just remind her what you were doing when you were just 3 years older.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're now 17, you're moving into adulthood. Like regardless of how well I think I've raised you, or you think I've raised you, or set you up for success, it's now on you. Like you have to start making the decisions, and you don't get to rest on your upbringing and laurels. Like it's take that seriously, like you determine your own future. I no longer do, so hopefully they do good.
I'm sure they will, man.
Yeah.
Do you got anything you want to plug? Any of your side hustle or any of your real estate stuff? Any initiatives, websites, anything?
No, we're not there yet. Maybe someday. When I do, I'll reach out. Maybe you have me back on here, and then I'll throw the plugs in. But yeah, no websites yet. We're at the ground level with all that stuff. But hopefully, in the next couple of years, we'll be there. Come back on and plug it.
Well, James, thanks for coming, man. I loved hearing it. I didn't know any of this stuff about you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's good catching up.
It was.
It's one way to do it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, your continued service.
Thank you.
What you did for the country, the community.
Yeah. Likewise.
For keeping my paramedic and nurse friends safe in the air.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, buddy.